Mumbai was attacked. Some of you may remember first-hand experience. Some of you, the younger ones, may have heard the stories from other people. What had happened? 3 days of attacks, several locations in Mumbai. At that point, 1 week after the attack, hundreds and thousands of people marched to the Gateway of India, the iconic historic structure, expressing solidarity. There were candlelight marches, voluntary candlelight marches. I kept wondering, why are people going there? And that's when I learned my first lesson. I used to be a journalist at that point, and specifically that was my last role as a journalist. I was the group editor director of Midday, one of the popular newspapers of Mumbai. And many like me journalists very strongly believe that we journalists were responsible for getting people out there. We were the ones who took people there. Our campaigns led to people going out there. That's a notion I lived for a very long time. The message I learned, I'll come back to you in a minute. 3 years later, 2011, if you remember social activist Anna Hazare, he led a lot of people, the India Against Corruption campaign, which happened in Delhi. Again, hundreds and thousands of people walked to Delhi, different vehicles, no matter what, they rode triple seats on vehicles, but they were on India Against Corruption, and they went out to Delhi and supported that. Again, lots of institutions believe that they were responsible for creating a campaign and the wave that led to so many people being in Delhi. They were far from truth. But what set me thinking is, why are so many people going there? What's leading them to go there? What's driving it? People went there because they wanted to. People went there because they desired to. People went there because they felt for a cause. And that's where I learned my lesson, which I was talking to you about earlier, that if you believe in a cause, there's only a cause that can make you do something. But that will not just rest there. To make that cause bigger, you will need to have that cause resonate with other people. I may want to do something, and we've heard so many inspiring stories. I may want to do something, I'm so passionate about doing something, but what next? How do I scale it up? Scaling it up means other people also believing in what I'm doing. For that, first, I need to be passionate and believing in what I'm doing. But we have a cause, we have a great idea. I also managed to stir up other people and get other people to understand what I'm doing. But how does that convert into a movement? How can I scale it up? What Anna Hazare did, or what so many other classic movements we've seen. And that's where, friends, I believe the roles of catalysts come into the picture. Catalysts who get people together. The roles of what we call spearheads. Arrows with sharper fronts. They give you a direction, they give you a focus, they make it move forward, and then an outcome reaches a tipping point and suddenly things change. I, like many of us in this room, am a catalyst. People do things not for me. I'm just one of these guys who looks at the various dots that's happening in different places. I managed to join those dots, create some kind of a structure, and if the idea belongs or possibly belongs to other people, and we help them scale it up. The question is, how do I become a catalyst? Or who's a catalyst? How do we become a catalyst? There's no set formula. Just look around you, look at me closely. Have I lived my life any different than most of you have? We haven't. I've done my blood donation camps when I was in school. I was a Boy Scout. I may have been in NCC. I was part of the road track. Things so many of you would have said, oh, even we've done that. So yes, all of you are catalysts in different forms. I lived my life slightly differently from a career point of view. I studied to be a journalist. I studied to be a lawyer, in fact. I became a journalist. For 20 odd years, I practiced journalism. I did business journalism, I did political reporting, I did organized crime. And a lot of things that I kept doing. At the age of 39, I decided to give it all up. From the business of delivering news, I decided to become an agent of delivering change. But change is never easy, as I realized through my experiences. And most of these experiences sometimes teach you the harder way. I was in Mumbai waiting for a rickshaw. The rickshaw never stopped. I'm sure many of us have experienced that time and again. So I kept trying, the rickshaw never stopped. And then I looked around, I saw a senior citizen couple trying to hail a rickshaw. I watched them, and the rickshaw never stopped again. So what did I do next? I was with a friend. So I tried to help out. And I'm sure this is something that some of you have done all the time. The rickshaws, again, I said, senior citizen couple, please help them, le jaiye kahin pe. Nothing happened. Then I did something which I thought was a bright idea, but you may decide. I decided to go to the rickshaw stand, which was a few feet away. I asked them, they said no. So I decided to lie in front of the auto rickshaw. And I was very happy because some people walked past, looked at me, smiled at me. Nobody decided to come and lie down next to me. After a point, I looked down and saw that the elderly couple, a rickshaw had stopped there. They managed to get a rickshaw and they went. I was really very happy. It could be possibly by chance, good luck, maybe a sympathetic rickshawala, or maybe my craziness which must have led those people to get a rickshaw. So I got up, very strongly believing that this little small passion or a cause that I followed had led to an outcome. I turned to my friend and said, Dekha, see what happened? I could see my friend really frothing at the face. He said, are you crazy? I said, yes. So I said, what are you doing? You want to change the world, right? I said, yes, I want to. Then don't do something stupid like this. If you want to change the world, and that's what I learned, rule number 2, is that if you want to change the world in something significant, try to get more and more people believing in the cause that you're trying to follow. If you do not get more people to believe what you're doing, tomorrow's papers will only carry the news of one mad man run over by a crazy rickshaw. Having been a journalist, I knew how insignificant that news was. So here I was trying to be in the headlines, and I was ending up being in the news in brief. So that's when I said, can I start scaling things up? And I believe, go big or go home. Can we start thinking big? But big does not mean something massive. My first awakening happened in 2015 when I was introduced to what we call the Joy of Giving Festival. Daan Utsav, as some of you may be familiar with, it's India's own voluntary festival of giving. People do selflessly for others. I went in for meetings, and 1 year later in 2016 I was attending one of these meetings, and there were a bunch of people who came there and said, we'd like to paint, we've painted 3 stations of Mumbai, and we'd like to paint 1 more station. They've done Borivali, they've done, I think, Khar and Batanga. And I was listening to them, I said, 1 more station, you know, Bombay is a crazy city. Railways are packed. What will 1 station do? So I told them, I said, why 1? Why can't we paint all the stations? They were a bunch of crazy guys. Incidentally, they were called Making a Difference, which is mad. Which so resonated with the way I live my life. So I said, why not all the stations? They said, all? How is it possible? I said, let's try it out. All of us got in the room and decided to get people together, looked at the map, and we realized there were 40 stations in Mumbai. And 40 stations, can we do that? There were more than 40, 45, 50 stations because there's Harbour Line, Central Line, Western Line. Those are familiar with traveling by train. And said, let's try to do as many stations as possible. And that's when I realized rule number 3, that when you have a good idea, always try to align with as many people who are good, who see the same idea in the way you are thinking. And that helps you motivate. It's not always possible. Okay? We started thinking, we got people together, we started working hard. We mapped up all the stations, we looked at what's possible, what's not possible. We created a bit of a campaign, and then we started moving forward, and we realized it could be possible. And then we realized also that problems come in all shapes and sizes, okay, in different quarters. I went for permissions to one particular officer, and for 3 weeks, every day he was very responsive. Definitely great idea, I'll help you out. And I was very happy. Next day, great idea, boss, we'll definitely help you out permission, so aapko kal mil jayegi. Great idea. 3 weeks later, I said, sir, when can I meet you? He said, okay, come tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And I went to his office at 9 in the morning, and his office boy said, Sahab, he's on leave for the next 2 weeks. And that's I realized that, you know, things like these can happen all the time. So, what do we do next? We decided to start mapping. And when we start increasing our circle of people who we start talking to, we realize that ideas come in all shapes and sizes. To every guy who's out there to be a naysayer, trust me, there are 2 people who are the positive guys. There's a good bone in most people. We just need to start tapping that good bone. And say, you know, I have an interesting idea. Nobody is going to say, some people might say rubbish, but others will generally say, yeah, okay, let's try it out, let's make it happen. And as we started moving, we got people together. What we did was, we got this massive idea of 40 railway stations of Mumbai. Some of the stations had already been painted in the past, some were heritage like the CST, the VT station. So we had 36 railway stations. We mapped each station as one individual station project. So big project, simplified it into smaller forms, created teams, what was the larger objective? To create a sense of ownership. What people generally believe is, it's not my station, it's public property, railways are supposed to do it, but somewhere don't I live? And we've heard these big talks all the time. We said, can I just beautify the place where I live? And each station was then owned by people who live there or who travel by that station. Each station was sponsored by companies which had offices very close to them. So what we did was we essentially simplified the massive project into smaller pockets. It became very easy for people to identify. We didn't say, let's transform Mumbai. We just said, look at the station next to you. And gradually, between the 2nd and the 8th of October, when Dhanotsav gets celebrated, we had 25,000 people who came and started painting the stations. Some painted, some cleaned, some brought paint, and they came in all shapes and sizes. It was purely voluntary, not a single penny got exchanged, but people gave their time. I had a 80-year-old man who got off, who called me at 11 in the night from Marine Line Station. He said, I've heard this painting project going on, and I don't have the time, nor can I have the energy, but I have some money. Can I give 500 rupees for the paint? Somebody else came with the paint when we had the inaugural ceremony. Somebody said, I have some food. Can I give it to your volunteers? And we all loved it. Because there was somebody else wanting. People said, what about security? Railway said, then railways got into action. They said, we provide you with safety, we provide you with security. And the movement just grew and grew and grew. And things started moving. So these are just images to see. And everybody came. School children came in, people moved forward. We also started doing a similar activity at the civic level. We got people to vote. What we did was we didn't want people to say, let's transform and let's become a better democracy. We just said, create a contest, let's start voting. Okay, vote for your constituency and be part of the civic change. I won't go into that. I go to the last example right here. Is that that's when Project Mumbai started off. We wanted to be catalysts and try to create some kind of a wave among people. And we didn't want to talk environment because that's a larger message and people were tired of listening to environment and climate change. We said, can you just do something for others? Do what? Give away your plastic. So then the question was, give away, give it to whom? So we said, we'll collect it from you. So we created a doorstep pickup of plastic from people across Bombay, 500 locations, 2,800 kilometers that our vehicles traveled, completely voluntary initiative, thousands and thousands of plastic collections happened. And people just donated, our trucks went there and the problems were there plenty because people said, I don't have plastic, but can you take my torn mattress? Or can you just take my garbage also along with it? And we had to say, no, it's just about plastic. And what do we do with the plastic? That was question 2 because plastic is big business in the city. So we said, okay, your plastic, we'll reconvert and recycle it into benches for senior citizens of Bombay. We went to the government. But you tell them that we'll help you out, things become easier. The moment you start asking the government for something, you know what the answer is going to be. We said, we'll just help you out with other things, give us space, we'll put a bench out there for senior citizens. They were happy that somebody else was doing their job. These are just images of the railway station that you get to see. People came in, 25,000 people who came and painted the stations, I hardly knew 15, 20 of them. None of them, they did not come for me, they came for the idea, they came for the cause. They believe that something can happen if they can participate in a small way. This is what plastic was. People came in, joined in, the beach groups came in, they supported the idea, we provided the trucks. Somebody said, I have trucks, can I offer you the trucks? BMC then said, we have trucks, can we offer you the trucks? Somebody else said, I have a recycling machine, can I recycle it for you? Arzan Khambata, the artist, said, I have skill sets, can I make an artwork? We said, wonderful. So a portion of the plastic which you and I have given is now going to be an artwork at the Bandra Kurla complex, which is a permanent artwork made out of plastic given by you. The benches are coming out of plastic which are made by you. The point I'm trying to make is that ideas happen, outcomes are wanted, there's a need for catalysts. The catalysts are all around us. Okay, all we need to do is look around, talk to people. Can we see, I need to do something. If you have a problem, there's always a solution. That's point one. Point two is don't try to change the world. Okay? It's too difficult. Just be the custodian of the 100 meters where you live. If you do that, all we need to do is let's go big.